And just like that, Webinar Wednesday is back on air. A big welcome to you all. I am Steve Dotto, and we have a very exciting Webinar Wednesday today because you all get to meet another member of the dottotech team as Liz Azyan is joining us. How are you doing, Liz?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me, Steve.
You're anxious, aren't you, Liz?
Very anxious.
You're terrible. Leave her alone.
That's going to be great. And of course, that's April. Now, April's going to be silent today because we're going to make April turn off her camera in a few minutes and just manage everything in the chat room. But hello, everybody, and welcome. Let me fill you in on what we're going to be doing today and what the plan is and what to expect. As usual, with Webinar Wednesday, we're going to be on air for about an hour. Usually we end up about an hour 20, but we make sure we get everything we can in the top hour. Today's webinar is being presented in Webinar Jam, which has been pretty stable, knock on wood, until... Actually, this is a grass. There, knock on wood, over here. Apparently my bamboo desk is grass, I was told the other day. It's not a wood. I didn't know that. We are in Webinar Jam, as you have already discovered. Many of you on the right-hand side, we have a chat window. So let us know where you're in from. And tell us if you're one of our patrons joining us today. A big shout out to all of our patrons. dottotech, of course, is supported through the generosity of you folks, our community, through the crowdfunding site Patreon. And we appreciate your support hugely. I can't believe I used that word. I shouldn't use that word, should I? Big time.
We know you make up your own words along the way.
No, it's true. So today's topic is building a website. So as is our tradition here, we pre-recorded a lot of the meat of the demo. Liz and I are going to have a good chat. Liz recently oversaw the redesign of the dottotech site, which many of you have visited, and she did she did a heck of a job. But it was a really interesting journey, and for me, it was the most comfortable journey of redesigning a website that I've ever experienced. And so we're going to go through what worked and some of the challenges with recreating a website. So if you're thinking about redoing your website, if you're thinking about doing your first website, I think that we will be. That you will learn a lot. Oh, Jed, thanks so much. Jed says he loves the redesign. So do we, Jed. So big thanks for that. And welcome Win from Patreon, and we've got Dave from Beeston, Nottingham, the UK. We've got Mike from the heartland of the USA. He's at St. Louis, Missouri. So welcome to you all. If you have any technical issues, there's a reconnect button at the very top of the screen that you can use in your playback screen, and that works pretty well. If that doesn't work, you can actually just refresh your browser. If that doesn't work, try it again in a different browser. Try the link in a different browser. And if that doesn't work, I don't have a solution for you. But we will be recording the entire webinar, and a replay will be sent out shortly after a couple of hours, or by tomorrow morning. There'll be a replay in your inbox. Now that replay is available to you all for 48 hours. And then after that, we reserve that replay for the benefit of our patrons at Patreon. So if you want access to this after 48 hours has passed, or any of our 45 previous webinars, they're all in our archives at Patreon. So you can, if you visit our Patreon page, you can discover that. So Liz, are you all psyched?
I'm so psyched. We talked about so many cool stuff, so I can't wait for people to hear in and answer all the questions afterwards.
Good stuff. So here's what we're going to be doing is we're going to start the video playing here in just a few minutes. I'll give people a few more minutes to settle in. We got a big crowd here. We got 270 people in the room so far. No pressure, Liz. No pressure.
We can leave her alone. Liz, don't put up with him.
She's on the dottotech team. On dottotech, how we show love for each other is by teasing.
I know, but you're always kind to Liz. I don't know if she can. That's not nice.
Yeah,
it's okay. I'll be all right.
I was so afraid of this entire website redesign that I had to be nice to Liz. But now that it's done, I feel a sense of liberation.
Can you imagine friends working with this guy? What a pain in the butt.
Okay, but an interesting tidbit. So first of all, I'm going to go full screen here just because I'd love your guys' feedback. The dottotech office is coming together. So you know that we've been moving houses, and I've been rebuilding the studio. So in the past, when I was in the old place, it didn't have there was nothing nice that I could have had behind me. So that's why we always had the green screen up as we were doing the webinar. But now you can see the fullness of the office space. So I've been trying to build this into a studio that we can stream live with, as in the webinars, and I can do Facebook Live and other things with. But I also wanted this office to become kind of an oasis of calm for me so I could be more productive in working. So we've been setting things up, and it's almost complete. There's one chair to come. But what do you think? Tell me what you think. Do you like the plant? That's a snake plant there. I posted on Facebook and asked what type of plants to get to cleanse the air and to make it look good. And these are suggestions. So we got plants on the shelves right there, and right there is another plant. And anyways, I don't know plants. I hope I can keep them alive.
I know. I was going to ask, have you ever had a plant to like water and take care of? You're supposed to
Of my very own. Yes. One that was legal.
Well, things are legal. There's lots of things.
It's legal now in Canada for sure. Yes and no. Mainly no. It was always kind of my partner's job to keep plants alive, and frankly, Shannon's not very good at it either. But I'm kind of into. I kind of got into it when I went to the store for the first time. I had a long conversation as I was picking my plants, and I'm excited about it. But I need a favor from the entire dottotech community. If you see a plant that obviously needs some care and attention in the background, I need you to let me know. Because,
they look like they're hardy plants, though. You probably don't have to water them all the time.
Once a week for this one, from what I understand, and once every couple of weeks for those two. I'm not positive, but yeah, there it is. People even know the Latin name for them.
No, they're good. They're good.
That's
now you
amazing.
need like one of those rock little waterfalls, and then it will be totally
I'd have to pee all the time. If I had any noise of water, I'd be running to pee all the time, and that's just not going to work for us. The plants need sunlight. Well, I've got massive windows here, but it's north facing, so we get no direct sunlight in here. And I've also got my my studio lights all set up. So the studio's set up now. You're gonna start seeing YouTube stuff coming out very soon, right, Liz?
Yep, we can't wait to get all those new videos out, Steve.
Yeah, we got lots of excitement in that space as well. So here's what we're going to do. Let's get into the video because we can waste a lot of time here and we want to be on time. And the video today is a little on the long side, longer than normal. It is actually 25 minutes. So while we are running this video, Liz and I and April will all be in the chat room answering your questions. We'll come out on the other side of this video and we will then answer all of the questions that we weren't able to answer in chat. And hopefully by the end of today, you guys will have a much better picture of what it takes or the kind of the best path forward for either redesigning or creating a website. So with that, we'll see you on the other side of the video. Liz, Azyan, you and I went through a process that I think we're a good couple because we're still friends after redesigning the website.
I enjoyed working with you, Steve. I mean, like, you're one of my favorite clients to work with. You're so easygoing, and you know what you want, and that's probably one of the most important things.
Oh, I'm blushing. Okay, here now let's go through the process because so many people, and I think you go through the same steps whether you're designing a brand new website for a brand new venture or you're redesigning your website. It just seems like such a mountain to start on, and that's one of the things that always held me back is that just seemed like so much work that we had to cover. So when a client comes to you and gives you engages you for the design of a new website or a redesign of the old site, what are the steps? What are the first things that you take them through to help them through the journey?
Well, the first thing I usually take them through is like I just ask them what they want from the website to begin with, because sometimes the biggest question people don't ask, or some companies don't ask, is like, where's your business at right now? Like, are you transitioning from one business model going to another, or are you going the same way but you have new products and you just want to freshen up your look? Yeah. So what's the main purpose of this new redesign or this new website? And
I can remember that conversation, and it made me stop and think. And I kind of had to boil it down. And I think you gave me a worksheet I had to work through, didn't you? There was a worksheet that I had to work through. And I boiled it down to, wait a minute, really what we want from the website is to get people to sign up for a mail list. And at the end of the day, I think we called it a conversion website, really. It was designed to support the community. But my business goal was not to sell product or anything else with it, although it did those things, but it was to get people registering for our newsletter and into my community. That was my goal. So based on that, how do you then kind of proceed from that point?
So like once you know what the customer wants and, kind of have an idea of what style you like with us, it was kind of easy because I already work with you. So I know what style you want. So usually if it was somebody new, I'd have to understand, what sort of style are they looking for? What sort of design, what sort of layout? So we go through a few examples maybe with them. I'd ask them to go out there, do a little bit of research, and then come back with me with some samples of things they would like for their own website.
And that was an iterative process. You sent me some websites that you thought I might, and I said, I like that, I hate that, I like that, I hate that, and then I sent you some that I like. But you didn't conduct, let's talk about the kind of the positions, because when you're building a website yourself, obviously you're going to do everything yourself. But even though you've got the skills to do all of it, you parceled out a lot of the different pieces of the work to subcontractors. Can you just give me kind of the architecture of, a typical team that might work on the construction of a website?
So the main thing is you have to have the main point of contact. And for you, that was me, right?
Yeah.
And then you had, like, for me, because to undertake the whole project to my own, obviously that's a lot of work to take on. And because on top of all the other projects I'm working on, I chose to outsource some of the kind of technical work to other people. So basically what we did was we met up with you, me, and the subcontractors, and we went through a 2-hour sort of a web briefing session.
Yeah, that was a big meeting. But you ran it, but they asked the questions. It was designed to get them on the same page to get us all, I guess, on the same page.
Yeah. And you'll find that agencies, they all work differently. And I was very open about it with you as well. I told you I was using subcontractors. Yeah. But some people, obviously, they use in-house. They have their own big team. So it really depends. And you have to really, I think this is one of the things I really want to press on is before you sign up with any agency, ask them what their process is. Like, get to know them a little bit. It doesn't matter if the kind of getting to know session is a long, sort of long-winded thing, because it's better to know what you're up against beforehand than later on. Like if say you have a revision, how long would it take to get back, the revised update? Some companies, you might be surprised. And I've worked with different partners. Some companies can take up to 2 to 4 weeks until you get another revision. And as you can imagine, like for someone like me, that's too long.
And for me too, because you'd lose momentum. That's the thing is, I think you have to have a solid push. One of the things that I kind of learned from this time through, which was quite painless compared to the other times that I've done it, and I've done it with other people building, and I've built my own, is this time here, it was smooth because of the schedule that we were on and how rapidly everything was delivered. Like, typically speaking, I would give you would send me notification that you wanted feedback on the pages, or the structure, and I would give it to you, and by the next day we would already have new stuff in place. Sometimes while we were on a call, you'd say, "Look at it now." Yeah. Yes. And that made a big difference because things evolved very quickly.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I like to work. I find that if you leave a project too long, it gets stale. Yeah. And then when it gets stale, for a designer and a developer, because I'm kind of both, I do both things. So for small projects, I do everything myself. But for a project like yours, it was slightly bigger. I know that when a designer works, they work on maybe 10 different projects. And then for them to get back into that mindset of designing for you, it's not the same as designing for someone. It could take up to 2 hours just to get back to the, do you know what I mean? If they haven't done it recently.
And I think that there was one thing that I kind of learned as well as we went through this is we didn't try and make this website all things to all people. We kept throwing things out and making sure that the things we did better. And that might be a really good lesson for anybody else thinking of redesigning their website or designing a new one is don't make it a huge undertaking right out of the gate. Find those core things, like that first interview is what's this website for? And then making sure that it excels in that space. You can add on things later, but building a really good core competency is, I think, it's the way to go. It's what's going to work.
You touch on such a good point there, Steve. I mean, so many times I find that the delays in website production is, people kind of think, oh, I want that. Oh, I want this, like on the go sort of. And all that stuff should have been done either before you approach the company, or like you would like kind of say, okay, post production, I would like to work on these things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So don't try to add things on while you're in production, because that could delay the project
And that was, and I kept having to bite my tongue because you'd see an opportunity and you'd say, well, can we just add this? Can we just add this? And it takes you away from the things that are really important. And as you go on, so once we were kind of into the process, you gave us a schedule and you developed a schedule, and then and then it was just basically. There was a fair bit of grunt work, which was converting some of our. There's always things that jump up and bite you right in the ass, right? The WordPress theme that I was in didn't allow us to export our blog posts.
Yes,
so you had
that was shocking for me. That was the first time I've ever seen anything like that.
And I was just going, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And so, but you then went out and sourced somebody that would convert them all for us at a really reasonable fee. So you've got to be flexible as you go through it. And then I mean, if I just I hate to make it sound simple, make it simple, but it's just doing the hard work of making the design decisions and the navigation decisions.
Yes.
I was often paralyzed by analysis as we kind of went through things, where I was, do I want it to go this way or that way, or even especially when we're talking about the architecture of the site, the navigation is finding ways to make it through. And again, would the best advice be to do it as simply as possible, because knowing that you can, is it easy to change that kind of stuff, the main navigation later, or is that like
From like a developer point of view, it's pretty simple, especially WordPress. It's easy, but I think like with you, it was like I'm not too worried about that, because you know your audience. That's a very big difference. Some people don't even know who their audience are, and for those people, I would say go inside your Google Analytics. If say you already have a website, go inside your Google Analytics, go to your social media accounts, check the demographics. Those are the things that you have to look out for before you start the project. You have to know who your audience is.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest point there.
And it's funny how that will manifest itself. You are young and have good eyes. How many times did I say, we need the font bigger, because my audience skews older? But it's little things like that, right?
Yeah.
That really make it.
And that's great, because you know your audience, So that's like a big point there. But like, again, I say a lot of people don't know their audience.
The other point that I kind of wanted to make here, which you led into, which is going into your analytics and all of that stuff, is I think you build a website with it being modified in the future. You make a site that you have the ability to evolve. So you pay attention to things as you build it, and then start running applications like heat maps or other things to figure out how people are navigating through the site, where they're leaving the site, what's stopping them. And that's how you improve it over time. But that's why starting simply is far better than starting complex, because if you start too complex, the analytics and the feedback you get on the site will be too noisy to really be able to make future decisions.
Yes, yeah, and like you raise a good point there, because the way you kind of lay that out is to say that building a website is just the first step. If that makes any sense. There's a lot more work that needs to happen after. The work really starts after you launch, because then you monitor the traffic, you see what's working, what's not. Maybe you want to move the buttons, call to actions around. All of that happens after. I mean, you do your best. Of course, everyone would like to get it right on the first go, but it's rarely the case. It's never going to be totally right until people start coming, and then you use data to translate into results. Do you know what I mean? You're using actual evidence rather than just guessing. I mean, developers and designers, it's like they're learning best practices, but different audiences will behave differently. Yes. So always consider that the launching of the site is the first step. A lot more work is to be done later on.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot, because our old site was a Franken site. It was built by me when I didn't have a budget. Now, the blessing that we had with this new site is we had a team in place. We had you, we had Sophia, who we're going to be talking about later in a later webinar, who did all of the copywriting for the site. So I had all of these assets that I didn't have that I could call on, who were experts in their field, to help me get it off the ground this time. 3 years ago, when I launched the site that used to horrify you to be engaged with, myself, I didn't have any of those assets. I didn't have a budget. I had to bootstrap the whole thing. So I did it myself, and I learned WordPress at that point there from scratch. If people aren't in a position yet to spend money, and I know we'll talk about how much it should cost a little bit later as well, because we will tackle that. I know that's something that everybody's going to be thinking about. But if people don't have a budget to start, what's the best advice you can give somebody that's going to be building their own site as their fledgling business starts? A site that will service a small startup business, not crush the spirit or the technical capability of the person creating it, but give them a basis to grow. Should they be going with one of these website builders like a Squarespace or something like that, or should they dive into WordPress and buy a theme? What would your advice be?
I mean, my personal advice, because I was kind of like that as well. I, started learning myself because I was developing my own websites. I probably developed 10 of my own websites, and then people saw my website and they're like, oh, can you do a website for me? So that's kind of how I started. Mm-hmm. And then I was involved in some government websites. And, so going back to, if you don't have the budget, I would say there's 3 options for you. First, I mean, I haven't used Squarespace myself, so I couldn't comment on that one. Yep. But WordPress-wise, there's 3 options here. So one, like the one you mentioned just now, buy your own theme, and then do it yourself. And you could buy it from ThemeForest, or there's a lot of, just put WordPress themes into Google and you'll find it. But I usually use ThemeForest because it's got a huge marketplace, and they kind of have a quality sort of what do you call it? They control the quality. Yeah, they have standards.
So can we call that a template, where you work with a template that they give you? So that is you're going to be hosting it yourself. You're going to have to find a WordPress host, etc. But you can buy a template from a company like ThemeForest. Okay.
Yes.
That's one.
And that's one option. So you could do that and then put all the content in yourself.
Yeah, and then modify how the graphics look and that sort of stuff. And they usually look a little bit, well, you can see them a mile away, but it does get the job done.
Yes. But say you're a little bit of a perfectionist and you're like, hey, I did it, but it looks nothing like the demo. It's you're like, why does it not look like, the beautiful demo that I saw? So the option for you is to then use, because at ThemeForest, you have the option of the developers themselves sort of building it for you based on the theme that you choose. So it might be a little fee for them to kind of install the theme and then kind of design it so it looks pretty much close to how the theme looks like.
Okay.
So there's an option there as well.
So you can just create the content, and they will then apply your content into their theme.
Yes.
Okay,
yes. So that's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a new thing that they're doing with ThemeForest and the Envato marketplace. They're allowing us to hire the actual designers to do the job, or the developers.
And of course, since they know their product so intimately, it's very quick for them to put it together. Yeah.
And that's the best. That's the best, that you know what you're getting, and then you just
pay a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Costs a little bit more, but you'll feel proud at the end of the day.
The downside of that, I'll say right away, is if you have to make modifications and changes, you don't necessarily have the skill set to do those because they did all the installation. So but it's a nice intermediate step.
Yeah. I only say this because I know some people who are very technical. They won't even attempt it.
Yeah.
But they know how to, they know to look for what they like.
Okay.
But they just won't attempt it themselves.
So this is a real budget way of getting a good-looking site that you're pretty much, that is going to be what it is.
Yes.
When it's built. Okay. And the third option?
So the third option is probably my favorite, but it might require a little bit of intermediate sort of skills, which is using a page builder like the one we use for your website called Elementor.
Yes.
And that's why I love this, is because it's just drag and drop. So you could design to your heart's content And if you have a little bit of a creative streak, it's really easy to use.
Yes, and that is. I would also call that a framework, that you work with it. And my first sites I developed using Optimized Press, which is a real big a site for doing landing pages and that sort of thing. So these tools allow you to just, as Liz says, drag and drop all of the different elements. So they're built. You're going to have a limited number of options as the tools, but probably too many because you'll tend to overuse them. But it's a tool that you will gain skills in, and you will learn to use, and they will continue to upgrade, and you will continue to invest in. You'll purchase it for, what is it, $99 a year or something like that for a tool like the one that we're using, Elementor, and you can do, but you can do so much more. It will have automatic integration with MailChimp or with your mail service, so you can. It does give you the ability to build your business around this framework, and Elementor is a great one. What was the other ones that we looked at?
There was Thrive theme.
Thrive, I liked a lot, yeah. And Optimized Press is another one, which is really focused on landing pages. So that's the third option that you have. I would say that for most of our community is going to be vastly preferable to going down the line of a tool like a Lead Pages or something like that, which is taking that metaphor to kind of the next step and having a marketing sequence builder, which would be, as I said, a Lead Pages or a ClickFunnels or something like that. Although one blends and blurs into the other, does it not?
Yes, it does. But for me, because I'm kind of comfortable with Elementor, I could do all of it with Elementor.
Yeah.
I could create my own templates for a landing page, kind of like what I do with you.
Yeah.
Is we use everything with Elementor, but it just saves a little bit more money because all of that extra other stuff costs more money in the end of it. Yeah.
And if you choose to learn to use one of these tools yourself, there's another downstream benefit that happens is because you intimately know the tool and you intimately know your business, there are going to be times that you say, wait a minute, there's a new opportunity here that maybe I'm not seizing by using the tool this way to apply it to my business. And I know that sounds kind of nebulous, but it does, those ideas coalesce. And they'll come from you, they'll come from me. I'll say, wait a minute, maybe now for our opt-in pages, we can do things this way, which then really allows us and then all of a sudden we created some new content based on the opportunities that the tool presented. And those things are working out for us. So that's a bit of it. Bottom line is, regardless of which process you choose to go to for a website, it's not easy work. You have to work hard on the content, you have to work hard on the management, and you have to work hard on learning the skills if you're going to do a good job. There's, other people will promise you simple, but I don't believe for a second this is simple. There's a lot of thought at every stage of the way, and the actual learning of the tools, while it's hard work, is the least of it. The imagination
and not
and
just
design.
that, right?
Sorry?
And not just that, because not just learning the tools, but tools tend to be upgraded and then they change. And
and WordPress is going to change, and
Yeah. So it's I personally, I would say my personal advice is if you find a tool that kind of does what you like, try to stick with it. Be loyal to them.
Well, that's what we went through. Once you joined our team, I was using a different theme company or different framework, and you used it while you were managing the old website. But then when it was time to design the new one, you came to me and you said, we can build it. I'll build it in that. But here are the benefits to moving to the framework that I'm more comfortable with. And it just made sense. But but in the skill set you have with it has made the launch of this one pretty effortless.
Yeah, and it was it has. I mean, not just for you. I mean, it has been the same story for all my other kind of website clients. The tool helps them to update themselves. I mean, that's the other reason why I chose it, because it's fairly easy to pick up. I mean, between me and Sophia can just go in and change a piece of content without much training, and that for me is huge. It's huge.
And you know what? I don't. I used to go into the website every day, into the back end, And now I'm not doing it anymore, which means that it's working as far as dottotech is concerned, because I'm not spending my time building web content. I'm spending my time building content. That's ultimately got to go into it. And so that frees us up to do things like this Webinar Wednesday. Okay, we got to get to Q&A because people are going to have a million questions. But before we do, let's tackle the sticky topic of cost. How much you should be spending, and just in your opinion, what's the range that people are going to be looking at?
Ooh, it really depends. You can get a website from $1,000 to $50,000. It really depends on what you want. If it's just a template, it might be, $500. Do you know what I mean? Just
if you go the route of the Envato marketplace, getting the website, the theme designer or the template designer to install it, $500 to $1,000, you could probably get away with it. Yeah.
And the other thing is to consider is like how we arranged it. You had your content copywriter write all the content, so we didn't have to do any of that.
Yes.
So and that has happened for a lot of our clients, and I do tend to prefer if a client does find their own content writer that they like the style and how they write, this tone, because that is a very hard thing for anybody to just create, because it's a very personalized thing to your brand. Okay. So you have to consider that. So if you're not going to get the company or the agency to do the content, then you have to add on the cost of that as well.
And I don't know what the ratio is, but I bet you it's at least 15%. Whatever you spend on your website, I think you have to be prepared to spend a percentage of that on ongoing maintenance and ongoing.
Oh yes, you bring such a good point. I just want to say this is so important before you even start. When you are asking yourself that question, what is this website for, and who is it for, and what sort of traffic are you getting? Like if you already have a site, so you have a rough idea of traffic, really take a long, hard look at your options for hosting, because a bad host can really slow down your site tremendously, and it will affect your SEO. It will affect your conversions. It's just one of the biggest things for me.
How much time did we spend looking at hosts?
Oh my God.
Between you, me, and Dave Hathaway.
Oh my gosh. A year?
Yeah. And I went from spending maybe $20 a month to, I don't know, I think we're spending over $100 a month now on the host, which is, but it's money so well spent.
It's so well spent because your traffic is, getting to the pages that they need to get to. There's going to be less bounce because, they're going to be spending longer time there because they can get to the page they want really quickly.
And in the world of mobile,
will love you.
And in the world of mobile, you don't have that. If your page doesn't load now, people are gone.
Yeah, and don't say bye-bye.
Yeah. So it's making a difference. So let's do this, Liz. I know that everybody's just chomping at the bit to have at you and ask questions. So let's transition now back to live. We should be fine now.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it seems to be gone for me now. Yeah, good. Okay.
Cool.
So here's what we're going to do is I'm going to fill you guys in a little bit on what's coming up next week. And Liz actually has a checklist that we'll let you know about, which is available. There was a question about that. And then we'll get into the Q&A. So I just wanted to let you know that once this webinar is done, we will be taking the pre-recorded webinar. We will take the entire webinar, package it up, and I will upload it to YouTube and allow you to send out a replay link so that you can see it there. And we'll add any links to any relevant links, especially what we go through here. I'm sure there'll be some links that people are asking about different services and stuff. So we'll make sure to make note of those and include those in the email that goes out to you. Now, the replay will be available for free for 48 hours on YouTube. And here's a little life hack: play it back at double speed. If you're going to be watching it again, you get all the content and you save yourself half the time. So you can do that when we set it up on YouTube. After 48 hours, we're going to pull the YouTube public play. And we are going to be archiving it in our Webinar Wednesday archives, which are there for the benefit of our patrons at Patreon. We are here and able to produce a new tutorial webinar with packed with information just like this one every week because of the support of you folks through Patreon. If you want to know more about supporting dottotech on Patreon, you can visit us at patreon.com/dottotech. But in a nutshell, you get access for $10 a month, which is what we ask for as far as support. You get access to all of our Webinar Wednesday archives. So this is the 46th of these webinars, as well as a whole bunch of little mini courses that we've created around some of our webinars. Plus, you get 50% off on our premium courses. And we're right now in the middle of delivering Online Video Made Easy. And so people that are in Online Video Made Easy save $250 on that course. So our patronage, there's perks that are awesome for you, and your support is awesome for us. We appreciate it ever so much. So thank you so much for those of you who are supporting us. Now, there was a question about a checklist, and Liz actually had a checklist that she's created around everything that you need to do to kind of prepare for webinar. Liz, fill us in on what the checklist has.
Okay, so the checklist there's two parts to it. One is like a website planner. It takes you through the process of, say, like you want to create a new website and you just don't know where to start. This planner is going to help you get into the zone. So you could start out. This is like even before you get a developer or a designer or a company to approach. I recommend going through that process yourself before actually approaching this, so you know what the brief is going to be when you do approach a company. So that's one part. The next part is a web content summary checklist. So it's basically going through all the questions you should be asking yourself, and also all the pages or whatever content that should be included inside your website. So you could just go through the list and just, I have to say though, that not everybody's the same. You know, every business is different. So some may apply to, some might not, but it's up to you to decide whether or not that's something you want to take on. But having it's about a few pages long. So there's a lot of content there, but it's just bullet points, so it's going to be easy to get through. It's basically a checklist. So hopefully that will be useful to you guys, because we cover some of the stuff that we talk here as well.
Good stuff. And this is a product that Liz has had, and she charges for, but she's given a super deep discount to people. So the normal price is $50, I think, is it, Liz?
Yep.
And the discount is
70% off.
And if you use the code dottotech, right?
Yes, that's
so
right.
Let's drop the links in there. Is the link in? April dropped the link in, and there's Liz's checklist. So there you go. And it's what it works out to about $17 or $18 if you use the discount, which is super. Thank you so much, Liz. So we will include that link, of course, when we send out the follow-up. We have so many questions. I think we're just going to dive in and skip all the niceties now and just answer, because it looks like there's 82 questions. I don't know if we're going to have time to get through them all, but we're going to do our best.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to interrupt you. What was the coupon code again? I put the link in.
It was dottotech.
Oh, that's easy. Thank you.
So easy. So easy. Okay. So we're going to start with the first question. There was a lot of questions about hosting, and choosing a host is a difficult thing. Now, we went through a lot of decision-making process in switching hosts, but we chose, and now help me with the name. What's the name of the host that we chose, Liz?
Pantheon.
Now, I have a website master, or a person that handles all the technical aspects of our site, David Hathaway. And so he manages the entire hosting arrangement, and then he's responsible for making sure the site's up, doing security updates, etc. So since we switched to Pantheon, though, our costs have gone up dramatically, but so has the quality of our service. We were hosted by a Canadian company called Canadian Web Hosting, Canada Web Hosting before, and their service was okay, but the site was always slow. And everything we did, we couldn't get the site running to the speed that we wanted. So we switched to Pantheon. We considered several others. WP Engine was one that we considered. And in hosting, I firmly believe that you get what you pay for, and you also get what you research. So you've got to not just because somebody's expensive makes them good, but you've got to test, you've got to check with others that use it. And even if you do, there's still going to be issues, because the hosts don't have control of everything that's happening in the online space. Just like, occasionally we have hiccups when we're delivering our webinar. Streaming stuff, there's a lot of variables happening, especially now that they've changed the access rules in the States. As far as allowing them to throttle different internet connections, you could get caught up in this, and it's got nothing to do with your host. But having said that, I believe spend more and get more as far as your hosting service is going.
Especially if you have a lot of traffic. So that's one to consider. take a look at your analytics, make sure you know what your average monthly traffic is, and then you'll have a good idea on which one to go with.
We can't make a recommendation, but we can say that we are happy with Pantheon at this point. We think we would have been happy with WP Engine. There's a lot, the premium services that we look like, they were all, you could throw a hat over what they were going to be cost-wise. And so Dave was looking at things like the back end and the administrative side, so just how he felt that he'd be able to manage things. So that's how we made our decision. It wasn't a simple decision. It took us, we were in conversation for a couple of months before we made the decision. We were talking about the host as long as we were designing the website. We were talking about it. Yeah. So yeah, good point. Marge says also speed is a factor in SEO ranking. Google will penalize you if your site loads slowly, especially in mobile. Somebody asked a great question. Do you design a separate site for mobile or make it responsive? Liz?
Sorry, what was the question again?
Do you design specifically for mobile or do you take your main site and make it responsive?
So we take the main site and then we have a different design for mobile. So we do design specifically for mobile.
Okay. And Mark, Bluehost? Bluehost is one of those entry-level products. I don't think that, I don't think, it's fine to start, but when you start getting traffic, it's something that you're going to have to take a long, hard look at. The reason Bluehost is so popular is they've got a wonderful affiliate program, so a lot of people make money out of recommending them. It's not a game we play, but a lot of people make money out of recommending them. And a lot of people that recommend them don't use them. That'll tell you something.
Yeah.
That's one of the little things that bothers me about our online brethren occasionally. Ron, a lot of comments. Ron was asking several questions, and several people were asking about privacy policies and data security and dealing with a contractor. And you made a great point, Liz.
Yeah, so there's a few things to this. I mean, we did sign a contract and NDA before we started, so that's one thing. The other thing is we used LastPass. So Steve never shared any passwords with me. It was, encrypted. So, and he has control over that access. Say for whatever reason, one day, I misbehaved, or he could easily just take back access. And that's one way to control access to all your assets as well. So that's another thing. Was there a third option? I forget.
Well, and I think covering the NDA is good. As far as protecting your customer privacy, that's something that you're always going to have to be careful with. And I don't know if we have best practices. The things that we're mentioning, protecting the password, is and signing the NDA, that's going to help. I don't know how good the NDA really is across boundaries and all of that sort of stuff, but it gets people thinking about it, and it makes your contractors and you both aware that you're concerned about privacy as you go ahead. It's interesting what's happening in the chat is everybody's asking, what about GoDaddy? What about HostGator? What about Bluehost? And then for every person that asks, somebody is saying avoid. Yeah. Through all of these low price services, these $9.95 a month, $29.95 a month. So that tells you. And whereas I don't see anybody saying avoid at the higher end service. Mind you, I think we pay over $100 a month. We increased our costs by a substantial amount moving to the newer systems, moving to the more dedicated and premium systems. So there's a balancing act. As you start out, there's nothing wrong with being with these hosts, and it is fairly easy to migrate once you're there, but make sure you have control. Okay. What's the real difference between the designers and the developers' work? John Curry's asking. That's a good question. But you really were you cross both.
Yes, I'm both. Actually, I can do both. But a designer, obviously, the difference is their job comes first in a website design because you have to have the design first. And the developer's job is at the end. So sometimes you get a hybrid. Someone like me, I do the design. And then the thing with Elementor is when you're designing, you're developing at the same time. So because there's no coding involved, it's just drag and drop. There's a little bit of coding involved. There's a bit of a CSS coding involved. So in that sense, it happens simultaneously. So yeah, it depends on who you're talking to and what type of applications you're using, I guess.
Now, I know there are a lot of questions in here about specific themes and hosts and stuff like that. We're not going to be able to address each one individually because we'll tell you, the next question will help kind of set the page, which is Karen asking, what platforms is dottotech using now? So I think you're using WordPress. If you've changed, why? Well, we haven't changed. We're still using WordPress. But so Liz, why don't you run down the tools that we're using?
So the tools, oh my gosh, there's so many tools.
Well, first of all, our theme, our theme or our platform is?
So the theme is a dottotech theme. It's a theme specifically designed for dottotechs. Yeah. What else?
It's built in Elementor.
built-in Elementor. So basically, the theme is completely blank, and we filled all those elements that you see with Elementor. So it's not like something that's been purchased as a template. It's like completely customized to dottotech.
And then for SEO, we're using
Yoast for
Yoast.
SEO.
Yep.
And we're using...
And we were using opt-in Monster for our pop-ups, for our opt-ins, but it's built into Elemental, so we switched away from that.
Yep. Oh, no, actually, we're using Infusionsoft plugin.
Oh, we're using Infusionsoft. We have the integration in Infusionsoft. See, I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, but that's the good thing about Elementor. They do have now integrations. This is something quite new. They didn't used to have integration. We used to have to use Zapier to connect to different mail systems, but now they actually have ActiveCampaign, MailChimp. I forget, they have a few more, but they don't have Infusionsoft, unfortunately, because I think Infusionsoft's API is a little bit more difficult for them to apply, so they don't have that one yet.
Okay. And that's go ahead.
Sorry? I was just going to say... Sorry. I was just going to say, there was one thing that I wanted to say during the recording is if you wanted to check how fast your website currently is, go to a website called gtmetrics.com. That's GT and then metrics, metrix.com. So then you'll know roughly what your speed is like at the moment, and you'll know like if you need to change your host or do some optimizations.
Good. April, make note of that. We'll add that to the email. I love this next question because I think it really dives in its. I don't know how to pronounce Henrik's first name, but he says, I sell online courses and consultancy, and I'm thinking of moving my WordPress site to a Wix platform. What's your opinion about Wix? I wouldn't move from WordPress to Wix.
No, that's like a step down.
Yes,
not a step up.
Wix is a very simple, and it's got a lot of appeal from the simplicity and all of those sort of things. But you give up far too much control, and I think you give up a lot of search. Google penalizes Wix sites. I don't believe it searches on indexes in the same way as it indexes your WordPress site. So finding a WordPress tool that you're building. But if you are selling online courses and a tool like what we're using, Elementor, is going to do it perfectly for you. Or if you want something that's even a little bit easier to use, I found that when I was using I've lost the name now. I had it just a moment ago. What did I use before, Liz? What's been out of my brain?
Sorry, for what? Sorry.
What did I build my site in before? It was
it was something called, I can't remember, but it was
Optimized Press. I couldn't remember. Optimized Press. And it was basically but it did basically landing pages. It was a landing page builder that integrated with everything, and it would be perfect for that sort of a business. Very easy to use, fairly inexpensive, but it's not the fastest. It doesn't necessarily resolve the fastest, but it's pretty easy to design and lots of good templates and that sort of stuff. So a tool like that, I would much prefer you stayed in WordPress and found a theme that you could work with rather than move to Wix. Yeah. This will eliminate a lot of the questions we have about Wix. People are asking. So first of all, I think you're penalized as far as indexing goes. I know that if you decide to move away, you've lost everything. You've basically if you stop your account, they have all of your content. It's not like you have a backup of all of your data and all of that sort of stuff, or you can just migrate to another platform or move across. I'm not sure what the export options are, but it's I think that Wix it might be fine if you're doing something super temporary that you just need to quickly throw something up. But if you're permanently in business, I think you should stay in WordPress.
Yeah. And a lot of people are asking about DV. Like, I haven't personally used DV myself. Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot of good things about it, but at the same time, I've heard a lot of, just looking through the comments right now, a lot of people are saying no to DV. So I think maybe it's worth, investigating. I'm sure they have a trial option and see. That's the thing with these page builders. You have to see whether it agrees with you. What agrees with some people doesn't agree with others. Like, I love Elementor because it's so easy to make a mobile, responsive, and it's just from a design point of view, they have so many features that it makes it easier to make the design more attractive. So that's why I love using that. But some people love Thrive themes.
Yeah, I like Thrive a lot. I looked
Yeah.
at Thrive, and it would have been a contender. I think it's very much the equal of Elementor.
Yeah, they were in the game first, so they've been around a lot longer. But Elementor is quickly speeding up, so it's really up to you. Sometimes it depends on the ecosystem you're using. Like with Thrive Themes, they also have loads of plugins that they create as well. So if you're into the whole community, then you might want to stick with just Thrive Themes and use all their plugins and all their themes that they have. But like I mentioned during the pre-recorded session, is I love being loyal to one tool if I can, because you do really get into it and you learn all the tricks and you master it.
Yeah.
And so you're not a jack of all trades. You really get to know the tool, and they grow with you. And when you're really good with this, the people who create it, you give them feedback, they grow with you, and they apply all the sort of suggestions that you have.
Good point. And we talked about that. We shifted to Elementor because of your competence with it, how comfortable you were with it. Yep. Yeah. Marge is saying, what if you're building a new site for a new business and you don't have metrics about your audience? Well, at that point there, it's what you anticipate your audience is going to be. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, the easiest way is to look at the competitors. What are they doing? That is the easiest way. Like, if you don't have any audience, just look at what's working for other people within your same industry. And sometimes, like, if say you're going to, one thing that I didn't touch on the recorded session is, if you don't know where to start, always look at what your competitors are doing and who are their suppliers, and go to the same suppliers, because you could have a website design and development company doing specifically construction sites, and they're good at it. And there's a familiarity there, and they really know what you need to execute a good construction site, right? So it's the same thing with here. If a supplier has done a lot of coaches site, then they're the best people to go to. So try to be really narrow down your choice, because those people will have the right advice specifically for your industry.
Yes. Giselle's got a great question here. What is the easiest way to set up a site for someone just starting? You want a basic site that will get people onto our mail list. Now, here's the key part. Products will be sold through ClickFunnels. People say to build your site on your own land, not rented. And what do you advise? Well, if you're in ClickFunnels, you're on rented land already. But you can build your landing pages in ClickFunnels, which might be the easiest path for you to begin. But I would personally highly recommend that you look at building a site similar, if you are in business and you are starting to, kind of have traction, you're in it for the long haul, to bring that in-house, to use one of the tools of the sort that we're talking about, one of these different themes, because you can build all your landing pages. All of our landing pages are built in our package, and then we just integrate it with our payment system or with our CMS. Having said that, the landing pages that you guys go to when you register for this webinar, that's rented land. That's coming from Webinar Jam, because it's so easy and quick, and they're just up for a week. So we don't really want it. We don't need to invest a bunch of time building it custom ourselves, because there's such a good templated system that's built into Webinar Jam. So you have to have a balancing act. Liz?
Yeah, but the thing is about, even if we did use Webinar Jam, you're still collecting the email addresses to your Infusionsoft. So, it's like, it's still coming to you. It's not like social media, say if Facebook, shut down one day and you just lose all your fans, unless you direct them to your email list, and then you obviously can continue to have that conversation with your audience. So it's always like that balancing act that you say. We're slowly actually moving most of our landing pages now to our website. We're like trying to reduce
the number of integrations we have.
But that's a long haul sort of plan. It's not something you just start your business and you can tick all these boxes. It doesn't happen that way. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to get it right the first time.
So Giselle, if I can read between the lines on Giselle's page, I would probably recommend that you don't even worry about anything until you have until you're well and you're making a lot of sales and you've got revenue coming in, and then revisit your strategy. I would build it all in ClickFunnels right now, because that's one that you've already invested in. It's working for you for a variety of different reasons. You've chosen it, but you can do all of these landing pages and all of the sales pages. You can make it almost look like your own site just in ClickFunnels without being too elaborate and going outside. So that would be what I'd recommend right now, and then obviously till you're ready to grow.
Yeah.
Steve, Wynn's asking, Steve, why do you use WordPress? Because it's so darn flexible, and what, 40% of the internet or something like that is run on it, and almost anybody that's in the CMS side that we are, is most people are using it. So it just, we used other systems before, but WordPress just works for us. Avram's asking who maintains our website, and that's a good. So we actually have 3 people that maintain, kind of are in charge of different aspects. Ongoing content that's being constantly updated. That's in Sophia's bailiwick, because she's in charge of the blogs and the content. From a design and features point of view, that's Liz. And from a security update and any technical aspects, that's Dave Hathaway, who runs it. So everybody's got their issues. If the site's down for some reason, or if something's broken, Dave's in. And then if we're updating features, or something doesn't, the navigation's not right in it, that's Liz's problem. And as far as just continuing to populate it with content, or we found out we still have a Laura Ipson post, that's gonna fall right into Sophia's lap.
I think somebody asked about Visual Page Builder. I think Diana asked about that, and the pros and cons for that. I actually try to avoid it. Like, I used to use it a lot, but I found it so slow. It loads so slow, and it just takes double the time to develop or design anything in it. But I don't know. I haven't used it for maybe a year and a half. I don't know if it's changed, but it's really based on, I guess, a personal experience. If you go to Theme Forest, you'll find that a lot of those themes are built on Visual Page Builders, so you're almost certain to run across it. But I personally, I don't like it. It's really, really slow, and it just, takes up too much time.
Laura's asking, for someone like an author who doesn't have a budget or a staff, what do you think of Wix as an alternate option? I hate to say no, but my instincts say no.
Yeah. Say no.
Yeah, and I know it's easy and it's appealing, but even a simple WordPress site, it's going to give you the basis to grow.
Yeah, just think about this, right? Even if you did spend a little bit of money now and not a lot, and at one point when your business grows, you're going to want to change. It's just inevitable. You're going to want to change to something like WordPress, where you could, collect email addresses and have more, like, maybe collect payments on your website, sell products. So just know that when that happens, you're going to have to hire someone to migrate all the content or whatsoever. It's still going to cost you a lot of money, because, might as well start right where you want to be, say in a year or two time, because WordPress isn't that, I'm not quite sure about the price difference, but all you need is a hosting fee, which you can get, like, you could start with a cheap one. Mm-hmm. And then it's not too hard to then move to a bigger one. But yeah, I would say that having that experience using WordPress for a year or two would, put you in a good position rather than learning it later on.
Yeah, that's I think that's fair. It's a little bit more struggle at the beginning, and all the things that we're saying about things like Bluehost or GoDaddy.
I started on Bluehost, so
they don't apply in your case. It's fine to start out on these sites.
Yeah.
Start out. Yeah. It's as you grow and as you become, once you kind of grow into the fullness of what the potential of your site's going to be, I think that you have to look at migrating at that point there.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Cynthia from Smart Starter says, do you prefer a site or a CMS? They're really the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. So a website is just a interface sitting on top of your content, which is in a database. That's all WordPress is a big ass database.
Yeah, it is.
Point things to. So and it's the wrapper that sits on top of it. So it's really the same. It's really the same sort of thing.
I'm wondering if Cynthia is using something else like Drupal, or I don't know, but yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Kyle's asked about SEO, and we pay pretty close attention to it, especially as we're moving ahead. There's 2 aspects of SEO. So first is we use Yoast, which basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, but one of the things that Yoast does is it basically looks at what we're publishing and makes sure that we're taking advantage of giving Google everything it is looking for to properly classify and index our content.
Yes, that's right. And it's like, they have a lot of tutorials, so you can learn how to fill in those descriptions and metadata. But, if you're just starting, if you just make sure that those fields are filled in, as much as, as good as effective as possible, then that will help your site to rank obviously. But yeah, I think that it also gives you like different certain colors like yellow, green, and red, just to tell you that, oh, your SEO is good or not good on this page. So it has good indicators, which is why I like it. I mean, this isn't just talking about beginners. I use it still. So it's something that I'm still using the free version even. So it's something that you could continue using for free for a very long time.
Good stuff. Okay. Greg was asking how we interface with Patreon through the website. We just point people to it. There's no real direct, there's no integration with Patreon directly into our site. Although Patreon, I mean, that's another, that's that we host content there, but it's not really with the, it's just a link.
Yeah.
Ron's asking clarification on Elementor versus lead pages. Lead pages is another one of the tools very similar to ClickFunnels. And they're trying, all of these landing page creators are trying to be more. They're all trying to grow in because they're having to add features. So a lot of them are turning themselves into very much almost website creation tools.
Yeah.
And they work, again, kind of like Bluehost. Lead pages is a success, partially due to the technology that it puts in place, which is good, but also partly because it's a really serious affiliate play, where it's got a lot of people that are very influential in the social marketing space who make a lot of money when you buy it. And again, it's a product that we don't play on that affiliate field, but that's one of the reasons that it's so strongly recommended. Is the people who recommend it and say that they run their business on it make money when you buy it through the affiliate links. And that's a concern to me, because I think I'm not going to accuse them of being disingenuous on it, but we do the same things with our sites, and we don't pay the monthly fees, and we have a lot more control, and we're not on rented land, as it were. So yeah. I'm sure you don't have to read too far between the lines. It's pretty clear what's between the lines and what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
And it's, you know what? And if it works for you and you're making it work and it's really profitable, good on you. But I'm saying that it's being pushed to a lot of people that it's really not quite right for.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I usually say, when you're first starting and you kind of like going in the dark, it's fine to go for those tools because they do make your life a lot easier. But in the long run, my advice would be, whenever you're deciding to go for a tool, start to manage the finances that go with it. Because when you find all these tools, it's like shiny things, right? You're like, oh, I'll get that one. And then you realize it adds up month after month. It's like $25 here, $25 here. And then when you could have done it all on WordPress for free. Do you know what I mean? It's like these things, they all are shiny things, and you could do it for free, but you feel like, you just don't feel confident enough. I would say it's fine to have some of those tools, but just manage the finances, because it can easily get out of control.
Yeah. Here, so we've reached the top of the hour. We still got a lot of questions. So anybody who has to go now, we want to thank you all very much for your time, and check out the replay for the answers to the rest of the questions. So for those of you that have to leave, thank you so much. But we'll continue to answer questions for at least another 20 or 30 minutes here. But I got to give April a heads up. April, I'm going through the questions, marking some of them back as chat. And I think you're thinking that they're new questions coming in, and then you've been remarking them as questions. So just be careful that you're not reassigning questions that we've already answered, if you can. I know that there's a lot happening. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of struggling, is I'm reading through a few of these. Just finding the next question here. As everybody's saying, thank you so much, those of you that are leaving. We appreciate you being there.
Thanks, guys, for coming.
Oh, Ron asked an interesting question. Who owns the site, Liz or dottotech?
Dottotech.
Yes, yeah. So you got to make sure you retain of the rights. And this is one of the kind of the legacies that is difficult for a lot of people, and why a lot of people have fear about the design process is somewhere in the history, either them or somebody they know has purchased a website, asked it to be built, and then the people that created the website have gone out of business, gone away, or in some ways hold that website hostage and not give, which is kind of the dark underbelly of, the fact that this was the Wild West when we started creating websites, and nobody really knew what they didn't know what they were doing. The people who were owned the businesses that required the websites didn't know what they were doing as far as website creation, and then so they could be sold a bill of goods, or so that is something you really have to be careful of, making sure you have all of the logins, that you own the hosting account, that you pay the bill on it. It's on your credit card for the hosting, so that if the business, the developer goes out of business, goes away, gets upset with you, they can't hold your business hostage. And we've all heard horror stories, but this is a core part of your business. Make sure that it's all, that you hold it all.
Yeah. If it was me, I mean, like with me and my clients, I always tell them to stick with, own you. I'm not going to own your website. Like I advise them to get their own. And like, if they want me to help them, I can help them, on an hourly basis. But I always advise people to own their own website, have full access, full control. That's the most important thing nowadays. You don't know where that company is going to be a year, 10 years from now, when you're going to need access to Google Analytics or whatnot. So, definitely.
Really good point. Tiffany asked a question. How can you tell what your competition is using? I don't think we're actually talking about knowing what tools they use, but instead looking at the sorts of things they do on their site. But how can you tell how a site is built?
You can look at the source code.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy, actually.
Yeah.
If you know how to read code, it's quite easy. You can know what theme they're using. You could see what plugins they're using. It's pretty straightforward.
So in your browser, you just say view source, and there's a whole bunch of programming that come on the side. But also, within there, you will see all of the different tools.
Yeah. Also, builtwith.com. It tells you exactly, like, if it's WordPress or hosting, it tells you everything. I'll put the link in.
Awesome. Yeah.
Good. Well done.
That's really good.
Done. Okay. David said, David just made a comment. WordPress is the world's most popular 32% content management system, he says. 32%.
And it's open source. So that means they're always improving on WordPress. So that's what I love about it. John's
asking about Google Sites compared with WordPress. Google Sites is, it's a very, very, very light, if I know if I'm thinking of the right thing, it's a very, very light page builder. Good for an announcement for like a school dance or something like that. Unless there's something that I'm not aware of, but it's not a serious contender in this space.
No. Just to answer Donald is asking about the mobile pages. So I guess I have to clarify. So Elementor on its own, it is responsive. So regardless of not whether you do a design for the mobile bit, it is going to be mobile responsive. But for some portions of the website, like I would call them sections, say is the header section or the content section. For some reason, it won't look good on mobile. So that's when I would duplicate the content and then kind of redesign it so it looks better on mobile. So I might have to maybe, how there's a background image, but on mobile, the positioning will it will move a little bit, and then so it would make some of the text unreadable. So it's things like that. Then I would duplicate that section. That's something that you have in Elementor. You could duplicate a section, and then you could hide certain sections from being seen on mobile or desktop. And that's what I mean by it. I hope that makes sense.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep. Christine, Doug's asking, content is my biggest challenge. Good for you. You recognize where the challenges lie. Because I think we can all overcome the technology, but content is the key, in my opinion. So sorry to editorialize. Any tips on finding a good copywriter?
Wow. This is a very personal choice. First of all, always go with, again, I'll go back to the competitor thing. Or if you see any website that you like how it's written, find out who the copywriter is. Or use the copywriter you're already currently using, because they know your tone of voice. It's kind of like, that's what Steve did. He carried on. And I think that's a good call, because most times, yes, I can do the copy for you. Say a company that develops the website does offer it, but I've come from the point of view of every company has their core strengths. And I find that copywriting is a very, very skilled art. So you better find the best person to do it if you're really, you're really picky on how the messaging should be. You could go on somewhere like, what's that called? What's that freelance website? I forget what it's called. Upwork. Upwork is a great website to find good copywriters because they have reviews, they have like examples of their content, and you can get very specific. Like, oh, do you want a sales page writer, or do you want a web content writer? They have different types of writers. It's just sales letters or newsletters, because there's all different types. It's like asking someone to draw, a portrait or a building. It's kind of like that. It's a very different type of skill for each of them.
Yeah.
So I usually say, if you have a copywriter that you like, go with that. There's no problem for me. We could exclude that from my service. But if not, have a look on Upwork. That's also a good place to look.
Good. Now, and we, from that perspective, in 2 weeks, we are scheduled to talk about doing better writing, which includes hiring copywriters and finding people to help you do your writing. So that's going to be a webinar that we'll be doing in 2 weeks from now on Webinar Wednesday. Good stuff. Okay.
Oh, somebody's saying the dottotech is one word when you put it in the code. So it might be because of the space in between. That's why it's not working.
Jim's asking, is our host Canadian? Our old host was, because it was called Canadian Web Hosting. Our new host, I don't believe, is Canadian. I think it's based in the States.
Yeah.
Diana is asking about the pros and cons of WP Bakery and Visual Composer.
Yeah, I think we covered that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, Rackspace, they've got a good reputation, Ron, I think. What was the password app? It's called LastPass, LASTPASS. That's the one that we use here on our team. 1Password works. There's a lot of them that will work, but I'm really liking LastPass these days. They've really upped their game, and it's
they have a mobile app as well.
Yeah, I was on the fence about it when they got purchased. The company that purchased them, I didn't love from past experiences with, but everything that's happened in the last 18 months with LastPass has kind of turned me around, and I'm kind of back on the LastPass bandwagon personally. So that's good. Just finding.
Stuart, what do you mean about template to tips? Template to tips. Sorry, can you clarify the question?
I'm not too sure. Yeah, and Rivera is asking about an elephant in the room, and I'm not sure. It's the EU General Data
GDPR.
Protection.
Yeah.
Regulation. There's WordPress plugins that contravene these regulations? You probably know more about it than me, because I haven't heard about it over here in North America.
Yeah, it's something that I'm still looking into. It's something that will come into effect soon, and I know a lot of government bodies are trying to make sure that all their content is GDPR. As from a business point of view, I haven't looked into it, but if I do, I will let you guys know, and maybe we might do a webinar or something if we find out more. Yeah, it's a big topic. It's very complicated.
There we go. Good. I think somebody just said you're adorable.
Oh, thanks. Now I'm embarrassed.
So Brian was asking Squarespace versus WordPress. Squarespace is kind of like Wix, but on steroids. It's a step up, and it's almost a framework of its own. And I think it's a little bit more serious contender, but it's still. You're only going to be limited to what they can do. You're not going to have the option of moving easily, or you can't add features through plugins easily and that sort of stuff. It's not open source. It's a closed environment. So it may work, but again, it's not my preferred way of doing things. I know, and it's like whenever we talk about these things, we're leading you down the path of most resistance. I realize that because there are all these other easier options. But as I said in the video, your website is hard work. There's going to be some hard work involved, because doing it right is worthwhile. There's a craftsmanship to it, and there's a competence in understanding all of the tools and making sure they work properly and reliably. So you have to spend the time and energy on it. And the more you're educated on it, the more you know about it, the better off you are going to be on that. So that's why we keep poo-pooing these promises of an easier time. So that's it. Sorry about that. Yeah. I'm not really all that sorry.
I do want to mention the one plugin that one of the plugins that everybody should use, which is optimizing images, because images can slow down your site tremendously. Good point. something like Tiny PNG, or actually, although I wouldn't recommend Tiny PNG anymore because they're quite expensive when it comes to optimizing each image. But the ones that I would recommend is WP Smush. That's if you have, I forget, it's part of a collection of plugins. But Imagify, that's another one. That's the one I currently use. They're quite affordable. But for most people, if you don't upload a lot of images, you could get by with a free account, no problem. But it is something that every website must have, I would say, because speed is everything, and it impacts SEO, Google search, everything. So yeah, just make sure you're compressing your images to load up your website quicker.
I see an aside here, David Ortez. You must have slipped through the cracks with that email that you sent us. If you're signed up for the online video course and you became a patron after that, but yes, of course, we'll honor the discount. April, if you can private message to April your information, we will make sure we get that on board for you, and we'll get that done today. We'll get that all straightened out today. Sorry that you slipped through. It's kind of busy when we're launching a product, and the odd thing does slip through. All right.
I think we're getting a lot of. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I just realized we're getting quite a few questions about landing pages, and I did want to kind of clarify because there's a confusion on what landing pages are. So landing pages are specific pages where you collect email address or is the sales page. It's not like web content. It's something that marketers use to sell or collect data. That's what it is. And you can create it easily in WordPress, but there's a lot of services like Lead Pages or ClickFunnels that offer an easier way to design it because they've optimized, like they've done like a comparison of which layout or design is optimized the most for conversions. And that's what those things are. They're just landing pages that are, they've created tools around it. But you can create it in WordPress itself, but obviously, you'd have to be a little bit of a designer and probably use the drag and drop tool for it. But that is what landing pages are.
And an optimized press is one that kind of crosses over into that space, and it does full site design, but it also is primarily designed for landing pages. And the good thing about a tool like Optimized Press is it is a WordPress plugin. It does work as a WordPress. So when you decide to migrate away from it, you've got everything in WordPress already when you grow. Ron and Jose are asking about WordPress LMS versus Thinkific. And there are a few WordPress. So what we're talking about, learning management systems. And these, again, we get into a bit of a gray area because these almost end up being membership sites in a lot of cases as well. And when you get into different sites that allow you to manage a membership and to trickle or to deliver content to them. So a tool like Thinkific it hosts all of our different LMS or our courses, and it basically manages the entire process. We could have brought that all in-house in WordPress using other membership tools, but my experience with them and April's experience with them, and I'm pretty sure Liz's experience with all of the different membership site tools is they are a nightmare to administer in WordPress. The nature of WordPress dictates that there are so many little hooks and so many little details that you have to learn to control that it is a tremendous amount of work. Now, you can integrate them very nicely with tools like Infusionsoft and other tools. And there's some that are primarily built for those tools. But even when they're built for them, we found them to be very, very difficult to use. And there's a monthly fee. There usually is a monthly fee attached as well. Thinkific does that all in its own environment. And it still has the hooks that we need to get our content into, or the information that we need into our database, into our customer database. It's not optimal in the fact that we are, to a certain extent, building part of our business on rented land, but the only negative is that if we had to ever recreate all of our course structure, we would have to redo all of the pages and some other things. So there is a little bit of a risk there, but for us, the benefit is that it is a dream administratively. Our students and our staff very seldom run into any headaches at all, and any issues we have, we can fix almost immediately. When we had a built-in membership site in the dottotech site, we were spending time each and every day administering lost passwords and people that couldn't get access and broken links. We don't do any of that now. It all just works. So that's my opinion on it. Liz, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think it really depends. I mean, I all your points are really valid because I've worked with a lot of different membership sites myself. So it really depends on how much interactivity you want and how much control you want. A lot of the plugins offer different things like polls or different types of interactivities like printed certificates or, so it really depends on the level of interactivity you want. I usually find that the more it gets complicated, you would want someone on standby basically to address all the problems. It's not a one-man job. Even, as good as you are, as technical as you are, some things just not worth your time as a business owner, dwelling on. Is something that you need to outsource for someone else to worry about because it could get very complicated.
Steve is calling you to task. dottotech scores a B on GT metrics. Is that okay? And what would we have to do to get an A?
That's pretty good, actually. B is still very, very good. I think it's a 1 point. It changes. Like if you try it again, it could change again.
Based on caching and stuff.
Yeah. But that's pretty good. B is pretty good. I mean, we're not expecting you to have A, or I think B is a pretty good, as long as people can get to a site and then the page loads, within 1 to 2 seconds. I would say that is the average.
Okay. So we're happy being a B. Liz?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm an A, by the way. But no, that's Dave's area.
But no, somebody else.
But that B is totally fine. B is totally fine because it's between 1 to 2 seconds. Yeah.
Karen says, what is a CMS? Content management system. All of the data that's on your website is your CMS.
Yeah.
Judy, Weebly is the same as Wix. Pretty much the same idea. Yeah. How much traffic does dottotech get? I don't know. I think we're over 10,000 page views a month. We're not huge. Yeah. We're growing. That's one of the things is that with the new site is with our business strategy and building the new site was to start driving more traffic to it. We've never directed traffic to our website in the past the same way as we directed traffic to, say, our YouTube channel. But that's changing, so we're expecting it to grow. But we're a little bit over 10,000 page views a month now, I think. Yeah.
So talking about tools, I know because everybody who follows Steve loves tools. I'm just going to touch on another tool, which is the Google Search Console. So that's another thing that you would want to know about when developing your website. Either ask your web developer to establish it, or get yourself also knowledgeable about it, because it's things like if, say, you move from an old site to a new site, you redesign a new site, and some of the links that are no longer available online that you've taken off the new site is still showing up on Google. You could use the Google Search Console to hide those links from the Google search results. So it's things like that. There's a lot of other things within it for webmasters to use. So it's something to look into.
Stuart's asking if we could share a calendar planner that we use for scheduling our content. We've actually covered it a little bit in the past when we've talked about Asana. Asana is the tool we use for planning out all of our content. So that's actually, if you are one of our patrons, you can go and look at our Asana webinar where we go through what our production process was last year. We're still evolving our new production process based on our new delivery schedule that we've got for this year, and we'll share that at some point in a future webinar as well. But we don't have a document that covers that per se, although it is pretty well covered in that webinar. I actually remember delivering that webinar because I was on the road. I think I was in Toronto when we did it, and it was it would be probably probably summertime last year is when we actually delivered that webinar on it. Okay, I'm just kind of working my way through. We're gonna move pretty quickly through, and if we missed your questions, we apologize. But we're getting close to the half hour, and that's a half hour overtime, and I think that's enough overtime to ask. Liz is ready for bed. It's getting pretty late there in the UK.
It's okay. I'm loving it. I'm loving all the questions.
Oh yeah. I love this question. Wait a minute. I saw this one. I got to get to it. Dennis, I built my website in Microsoft Front Page, which cannot be updated. What are my options? Oh, that question.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I want to call April on this. I have no experience in MS front page, so I have no idea.
I don't even know. I remember front page, but I don't even know.
I didn't even know
it's time for a new website, because I know that most website developers probably won't touch it. I mean, it's definitely a dated platform.
Sorry, we don't mean to laugh at your pain.
We're not. Yeah,
we're not laughing. Well, we are laughing a little bit, but it's such a blast from the past. So yeah, it's probably time to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. It's time to move
learn
to a
something
platform.
Time to learn something new. Yeah. Okay. Ron's asking, would net neutrality elimination affect our site speed and SEO? It'll definitely affect your site speed, depending on, or it could, depending on how because they can throttle any website they want. So you won't have control. There's not equanimity. Is that a word? On that front. That's one of the reasons we're so concerned about it. Now, to be fair, it's going to affect larger players far more than it's going to affect us, but it could well affect us. It could be that a company like a Wix or something like that does a deal where their stuff gets pushed through faster than native WordPress stuff. I couldn't see that happening, but when you don't have rules in place regarding the throttling of content or websites, anything can happen. That's one of the reasons it was a bad law. It was a good law. It was a bad repeal. Don't get me started. No, you got me started. But yeah. No.
So I want to give a little tip. So when you're hiring a designer or a developer to do your website, sometimes they will ask you, what are your brand's color code? And you're like, wow, what's that? Where do I find out what it is? So here's a little tip. You can install an extension on Chrome called Color Picker. It's like an eyedropper tool where you could just pick up colors from your website using this tool, and they will give you the code, and you can pass that on. I mean, usually they could probably do that themselves, but it's something you want to it's a little tip. If you want to pick up colors from a different website, that you like, then you could use that tool to figure out what the color code is to give to your designer.
Sorry, Donald was asking what my T-shirt says.
You were distracting me. I was like, what's going on with Steve?
This T-shirt was a gift from an internet celebrity. Vivica Von Rosen gave me this T-shirt last year at Social Media Marketing World. So look me in the beard. Yeah, when you're talking to me. Sorry.
Another site I wanted to share was if you wanted to test your browsers on across different websites, different devices, there's browsershots.org and Browserling. I'll put all the links later on. These are all, just tools because we love tools for you to test out and see how your website looks across different platforms.
Excellent. I think since we're down to talking about what's on my T-shirt, that we have exhausted this topic. I'm sure there are other questions, and if it hasn't been answered, our apologies. Liz, if people want, several people have said, how do they hire you? So do not take up too much of her time. That's not the purpose of this. But your site is digitalmatchbox.com.
Yeah.
Is it the hyphen in there?
Yes, there is a hyphen in between. Yep. And just go to the Contact Us page and let me know what you want to talk about, and we could take it from there.
Yeah. So April, can you drop the link in, or Liz, drop the link into your site? And with that, I have to thank April for managing things. You guys, the questions were awesome. I think it was a topic well worth doing, and it was a long time coming. We've been planning on this one for a long time, and I'm thrilled that that I hope we got you all thinking in a different way about your websites, and at least maybe get offered some clarity to you as you move into the next revision of your online presence. Liz Azyan, Digital Matchbox, thank you so much. April, as always, great job. We will see you folks next week. Next week's topic, by the way, is, I forget, what is it? I got to look it up. Just a minute.
I love it when you do that.
It's about ergonomics. And
that's right. We're going to be talking ergonomics because I've been going through the complete redesign of the office, and it's got me thinking about all things ergonomics and making your office more conducive to a productive.
You want to know the title? Do you remember the title?
No.
Setting up a workspace that enhances your productivity and your life.
That's
Wow.
a long title. You don't usually let me do subjects that long for emails.
Well, that's not an email. It is on the landing page, and I did share it in the chat. So
Thank you so much. All right. With that, thank you all so much for spending time with us. To all of our patrons, a big hug. To any new patrons, welcome aboard. We are so looking forward to you being part of the community. Until next week, on behalf of Liz and April, I am Steve Dotto. Have fun storming a castle.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.